Drew here, Frisco Tennis Shop. In this brief video, I'm going to discuss the difference between a reference tension or static tension and dynamic tension and string bed stiffness. Reference tension or static tension is pretty simple. What do we pull the string at is tension-wise when we initially string the racket. So this is the most commonly referred to one. If you look up a pro where they strung their racket, or if I talk to a customer, what do you want your racket strung at? It's going to be referring to the reference tension or static tension. It's just basically what are we pulling the tension at? It can be measured in pounds or kilos. So 55 pounds they want to strung at, that's going to be the reference tension. They can always come back and say, hey, that was strung at 55 pounds. Let's go back to that. Obviously, as you play, that tension will decrease over time, but we can always refer back to that reference or static tension. Another tension that's probably not talked about as much, but is just as important, is a dynamic tension or string bed stiffness. It's called dynamic tension because basically how does the string bed react when it makes contact with the ball? Or string bed stiffness, how stiff is that string bed regardless of what we pull the tension at? And this matters because we use different string materials, whether it's multi-filament, which is a very soft string, or a polyester string, which is a little bit more inelastic, or for the few of us who still use Kevlar, that's going to be real inelastic. So just an example, say you have let's go the extreme Kevlar string, which is very inelastic, very stiff. Say I string that, say 40 pounds. And then say someone else wants me to string a racket at say 60 pounds with the multi-filament string. Well, it's 60 pounds versus 40 pounds. Which string bed stiffness will be higher? Well, the answer is actually the Kevlar, because that's a more inelastic material, a definitely stiffer string. So it'll have a higher string bed stiffness or dynamic tension on the racket frame regardless of what it was strung at. And this is important, like if we want to match rackets or get a similar play. Like I had a customer, this is a Wilson Ultra, bring me a similar racket. He said it wanted it strung. It was a Wilson Ultra, but it was an oversized head. So we kind of got to factor in how that affects things, how that affects the string bed stiffness, or if they want to use a different string material, how that changes it. And just like a string machine, you can actually input your reference tension or static tension. They actually make some devices or apps. There's a RacquetTune app that I'll link to below. There's a Gamma ERT 300 stringer I'll link to below. So there are ways you can measure your string bed stiffness or dynamic tension just to see how it goes over time. So my reference tension could be 55 pounds, but I may test it with one of those devices and see my dynamic tension or string bed stiffness is say in the 40s because it's the ball hitting the string bed at the point of contact. That's going to be what it's measuring, the softness or stiffness of that racket. So that's just a brief summary of the difference between string bed stiffness and reference tension. They're different concepts. One will affect the other, but both very important to know the difference between those two string tension measurements. This has been Drew from Frisco Tennis Shop, and I hope to talk soon.